You're listening to the Valley Current.
Hey, Jack.
Hi, Nicole. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Congratulations on finishing the book, and I see that it's up on Amazon already.
It is. Yeah, I haven't announced it yet, but it's live as of today, so I'm pretty excited.
Congratulations.
It's been a long journey.
I know. Let's talk for a few minutes. Tell me the journey for getting this great book. The title of it is Beyond the Border, and it's a great story about your grandfather and how he made his way across from North Korea to South Korea. So tell me more about how the idea occurred. I know he had a separate notebook. You'll tell us about that. We registered the copyrights for you in both of those works.
Yeah.
And you've been great in getting this done. So tell me.
You two have been amazing. Thank you. Thank you and your team. Yeah, so let me dig in to tell you more about how it started. So in 2020, at the beginning of 2020, we all went through COVID and sheltering in place in California. So I had a little bit of time on my hand. I decided to watch Band of Brothers as well as The Pacific. So that's by Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks. So if you've seen Saving Private Ryan, very similar in that regards.
Right.
And I finished those two miniseries, and I thought to myself, hey, what's next? What's my story? And I remember my grandfather, when I grew up as a kid, he would always tell me these stories about participating and fighting in the Korean War. So I decided to dig up those stories because he wrote these down over the course of 10 years. So I dug those up and I started reading them and piecing them together. And there was hundreds of pages about him growing up in North Korea, as well as being suspected as a spy for North Korea, journeying across the border. And the border was split actually by the Soviet Union and the United States in 1945 at the end of World War II.
Right.
And so he had to cross the border in order to seek an educational opportunity in Seoul, South Korea. So he left his family behind and pursued that educational opportunity. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years later, the war breaks out. And so he's fighting for the South Korean army. And the book is about his stories growing up as a child in North Korea, as well as fighting in the Korean War for the South Korean army. After reading some of these stories, I was missing a lot of parts, but I decided to take this to market. And I figured, hey, I'm in marketing. If I can go live with technology products, why not try a book this time around?
Right. You've worked for some big companies. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background in marketing? Because you produced a beautiful book. It's got a beautiful cover. I'm putting the images of the cover. I think you did all this artwork, or you caused all this artwork to occur. I mean, this is kind of your labor of love over what amounts to about a 3-year period, right?
Yeah. So just a little bit about my background first. So I worked for companies like Actron focused on web content management. It's actually my dad's company. And so that is now Optimizely. I then moved on to a company called Box pre-IPO and was with that company when we went public. And then on to Google. And then at Google focused on partner marketing. Then went on to be at WeWork. And then after WeWork most recently at a company called Matterport. And Matterport is a platform that creates a dimensionally accurate digital twin of a physical space. So built out the partner marketing function there. So yeah, I actually left Matterport to focus on this project. And it was definitely different going from a company where I was on Zoom calls all day to working on this project, which was pretty much reading and writing, researching a ton on Korea's history and the Korean War, and got to work with freelancers. So the cover design is actually by somebody named Owen Gent. So worked with him on the artwork for the cover, worked with a photographer, worked with an editor. So a lot of people involved in the process, yourselves included. And yeah, this is now live. It feels really great to actually hold the physical copy of the book, which is right here. It has not for resale on it, but it is now live as of yesterday.
Right. It's it's a manifestation of an idea that you germinated as a result of seeing a movie or several movies. And it's manifested in what is a 500 plus page detailed book. You decided to publish it initially as a paperback, which I'm interested in knowing why you decided that versus a lot of people like to come out with hardback books. Why did you decide to go paperback first?
Yes, paperback is the first one I'm going live with, but hardcover, I actually just need to receive the proof. So the proof is coming to me. And then the EPUB, also known as the publication for Kindle, should be going live in the next few days. Okay. So all of these will be live shortly. And actually, 85% of people, I'm learning a lot of facts in terms of the publishing world, but 85% of people actually read the Kindle edition, the ebook version, versus me. I actually like to hold a physical copy of a book.
Right. Yeah. Kindle is taken off. I know initially a lot of people questioned whether the Kindle would ever be successful. And lots of people thought, no way, no how, you can't really write on it. Now there's a version you can write on. But conceptually, I think it's a beautiful book. You've included many different maps and other sort of items that are worthwhile. So getting the physical book is probably a good thing to do. And you have established a website called beyondtheborderbook.com, which I assume is going to also be doing some marketing for the book as well, right?
Yep. So I'm going to be working on more marketing. I think the majority of this journey has just been writing. And so I've been really trying to hit the deadline of July, just because the Korean armistice is taking place. The 70th anniversary of the Korean armistice is this July 27th. So that technically is quote unquote, basically the end of the Korean War. The Korean War is also called the never ending war. So it never technically ended. This website is actually a work in progress. So you'll see that. You'll see it's a work in progress. So not quite done yet, but getting there. But yeah, that 70th anniversary is coming up. So I wanted to hit that deadline. And to be honest, my grandfather is 92 years old. And so I really wanted him to be able to hold this book. And when he did the other day, he got really emotional. So it's really great to see him be able to see what he created. And then me working with him over the course of the past 3 years. Like, he's worked on this for 10 plus years. But then for me, it was a series of 30-minute calls every single day. So I would finish up I would wrap up my Matterport or a job for the day, and then I'd call him on the phone and I'd interview him every single day in terms of who the characters were, filling in the missing gaps, understanding more of the history of Korea, and then doing research myself. So it's been really a fun journey because I also got to explore a lot of my own heritage and my roots. And one thing that I would really encourage people to do is just talk to their family members, talk to their grandparents or their aunts and uncles or their parents about their own journey, because everybody has their own story. And I feel fortunate that I got to learn a little bit more about mine.
Well, there's some research out there that suggests that people will live longer, particularly people that get beyond 70 or 80, if A, they stay connected to other family members, B, they have a project that has meaning to them. For some people, that's playing bingo. For other people, it's writing books or coming up with an idea for some type of intellectual property, sometimes an invention. And number three, that there's kind of this sense that they still have some purpose as a result of 1 and 2, because that wisdom really is irreplaceable. And I think more and more we're going to see research, scientific research, that suggests that health span, in particular, and lifespan as well, is more tightly attached to these non-physiological factors that are independent of diet, independent of nutrition, independent of exercise, that really make people want to get up in the morning instead of like saying adios. I've had enough of this. I could tell a very funny story about my own dad, which is he retired pretty early in life, I thought, because he's always been a hard worker. Retired at 55. He got bored. He went back to work and then retired again at 65. And then he took a job, like quote unquote job, as a crossing guard. So I think he was paid like $7 a day during the school year. So it was a 9-month-a-year job crossing elementary students. And it really made his day. He really loved doing it. Of course, he had to wear a uniform. I think they even gave him like some type of weapon. So long story how it works in Florida. Florida is more of like, hey, if you're in the peace officer service, we can give you an arm, we can give you a firearm. And he loved that because he was an old Navy guy. And my mom at some point complained so loudly, he was about 85. So he did this job for quite a while. He loved it. And she said, he gets up in the morning, he puts the uniform on, then he comes back for lunch and he comes back to the school, he takes the uniform off, then he puts it back on. Like, I'm not getting any help in the household. So I'm demanding of him that he retire from this stupid crossing. She called it a crossing guard guy. I tell you, the minute that happened, it was totally downhill. No. And I said to her, you should let him be the crossing guard. And she said, I get no help. I said, just spend the money, have a live-in maid, have a live-in butler, have a chauffeur, just spend the money. Oh no, we would never do that. I mean, they were pretty well off. And she forced him to quit. And I think within about 3 years of that, it was like his health diminished. He wasn't seeing his kids. He wasn't seeing the teachers. He wasn't having his morning coffee with his other crossing guards. It was a mistake. And she outlived him, but she was younger than him too. But fundamentally, I always said to her, that was a huge mistake. You miss your husband. You should just let him be the crossing guard. He would have probably still been alive at the age of 100. In fact, I think it would have been his 100th birthday next year.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's impressive.
Your grandfather should go on some of the speaking tours with you.
Yeah, definitely. I do think, just what you're saying, Jack, everybody needs some purpose in life to live for, and that's constantly changing over time and as you age. And specifically for my grandfather, he was always seeking to learn more. And so even in New Hampshire, he was attending classes for senior citizens, and then goes on and writes this book, learns how to run, and is running half marathons in his 70s. So there was always something new that he was working on. And to be honest, like where we are in Silicon Valley, that's what I love about Silicon Valley as well, is there's always a revolutionary change going on. I mean, I think we're in it right now with like what's going on with AI, but there's always like that risk taking. The story is about risk taking. So yeah.
So in total, it sounds like you spent close to 3 calendar years, the pandemic and where we are today in July. So more than half of 2023, probably most of 2020, most of 2021, most of 2022, roughly.
I would say, 2020, 2021, and 2022, a lot less so because I had a full-time job. And so it would usually be just my Saturdays. It would be like my entire Saturday that I was working on it. And then like 30-minute calls Monday through Friday with him to get my questions answered. But then it was really at the end of 2022, so this past year, that I decided, hey, I actually need to leave my job to focus on this full time. So this has been my full-time job. And these author pages right here that you're looking at, these are also, I was working on these today. You can't actually go live with author pages until the book is published. So I'm not even sure if mine is live yet. But yours is live. Let's put it up. I think you did a great job on all this writing. I mean, it's amazing. How productive. Yeah, little things like this that you need to pay attention to, all these details. But Yeah, actually, if you
There's
click
a
on
lot of there's a lot of work to publishing a book, and a lot of people don't realize just how much work there is. It's not as simple as lots of people want to believe it should be. It just isn't. So
There's so much work. It's incredible. I thought when I started this, I could just put it together and go live with it. And the amount of editing, well, first of all, the writing, and then adding all the history sections. So just constantly researching on the history of Korea and the Korean War. I learned so much, and it's amazing what's out there. I got a lot of the American perspective from the war, but there's all of the Korean perspective from the Republic of Korea Army. So researching that, but then in terms of copyright, working with you, working with an editor to get it edited, working on the artwork and the design, posting it on Amazon.com, making sure the interior formatting. So there's a lot. And again, just going from a tech job of so many hours, like 20 hours a week of Zoom calls, because I was in the partner marketing space. So working with technology partners and services partners with the Matterport team, and constantly on calls with Facebook, AI, now Meta, also AWS, to this project where I'm like solo in front of a screen, constantly reading and constantly writing and researching. It was very different in terms of what I'm used to. But to be honest, it's nice to take a little bit of a break from my tech life to work on something completely different, because ultimately, being in partner marketing and marketing in general in the Bay Area, you're always a storyteller. So this is just in a different format, really going live with an actual story versus bringing like a B2B product to market in the tech space. So
right.
This was something new for me, and I learned a lot. And again, it's super great to hold this in hand now.
Well, you'll be able to share this now with your siblings as well as with your children, right?
Yeah, like I'll be able to share it with all my family. My grandfather is starting to just hold and share the proof copy that we have now. But since this is live as of yesterday, I just ordered. So I'm going to be able to hand that out. So yeah, this is something that it's my grandfather's life story. So this is something that I'll be able to pass on to future family members. So it's that in that regard, it's super special.
It's huge. Yeah. So you need to take some videos of him, maybe reading some highlighted text, obviously not the whole book, although I imagine if you could do an audio version. I mean, a lot of people listen to books on Audible, which is a company Amazon bought a number of years ago.
I definitely need to do an Audible for this, for sure.
And the question is, can you get him to at least talk a little bit about the introduction? I mean, I've seen co-authors, and this is just an idea, I've seen co-authors do an Audible, and they switch between who's reading. And then at the end of each chapter, they talk about like what was the creative jolt that inspired the chapter. Like they do the inside game about the book on Audible. So there's examples I can send you that, to me, turn it into a quasi podcast. And that's the other thing you can legitimately do, because it's all your copyright, all your work, which is you could create a podcast of different events that really need to be brought to light. And the only reason I throw all this out is the way in which Hollywood these days gets ideas is not so much from agents. I mean, there are agents, obviously, that pitch ideas, but they listen to podcasts and they listen for stories. I mean, there's so much going on Amazon, they can't even keep track of the thousands of books that get published every hour, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they kind of look for, hey, this is an interesting story. It got retold in part on this podcast. It got retold maybe if you get to be on some TV shows, obviously, about the book. Maybe you'll make your way on some of these night shows. I mean, it'd be an interesting story because a lot of people lose track of history. And obviously, North Korea is a big issue.
It's so true. I would say that the Korean War is also known as the Forgotten War. And you'll see in the intro and the end of the story one of the main themes is to help remember, is to never forget the military personnel who they sacrificed their lives and they served their country, like 21 nations from the UN. So they came all the way to a country that they did not know. And the story is to remember them, as well as honor them for their service without them coming over. And I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them. And it's also to help remember the Korean people, both North and South. There were a lot of family members who were completely separated and they never saw their family again because some of their family remained in North Korea and they didn't come to South Korea. And there are a lot of people who still are alive today who they crossed the border and they never saw their family again. And this story is really to help remember because it is the forgotten war. It's a war that took place between World War II as well as the Vietnam War. And it's really to talk more about life in Korea in the 1930s and 1940s under Japanese rule, as well as all of what the Korean people went through. So with that, South Korea is 10th in the world in terms of GDP. And that wouldn't be the case today if it wasn't for all of the efforts made by the United States and the United Nations coming over to help the Korean people. So with that, forever grateful. Again, it's been really connecting me to from where I came from.
Right. Your grandfather was born in 1931. And what is his birthday? He just was 92? Like literally?
In April.
Oh, in April he was 92.
Yep.
Okay, so he's got a march of about another 8 years to get to 100. He'll certainly get on a TV show. Do you have any thoughts that this could be turned into a movie? Because it's got some very interesting stories within the larger story that's here.
To be honest, Jack, I thought this would be I really wanted to just make this one book. But when I was working on it, I did think to myself, I'm like, should I make this 2 books? Because it is so long. As you mentioned, it's over 500 pages. It's 526 pages to be exact. And there's so many stories within this book that could potentially be like a TV show or a miniseries or a movie. Potentially, it's interesting because watching the Band of the Brothers and the Pacific was what influenced me to dig up all his writings. So I would say you never know.
Well, I have to tell you, I think you've done a masterful job. I think it's a beautiful book. I, of course, read it in the context of this copyright registration work that we did. I thought it was very well written. Your resume needs to add this for sure because it really means
it's currently missing from my LinkedIn, but I'll add it.
You have a wide range of capability in doing lots of things, and that's a lot of talent. And maybe you're about to become an actress in the business and you can actually play a role. And it would be interesting. So you should think about doing some video with your grandfather and, of course, yourself. And obviously, I will tell all my friends and others, and we will we'll buy and gift copies over to other lawyers and paralegals in the office and get you kickstarted and hopefully get you some good reviews. And
awesome.
Both Lin Yan and I want to congratulate you on a great work. And hopefully this podcast will help the effort as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jack, for working with you and Lin Yan. And I just really appreciate all the time and dedication that you two had towards this. And just also, answering all my emails super quickly. And I would say this has just been like a whole effort, not only with my grandfather, but just like learning more about my past and really doing this for all of my relatives who are in North Korea who I've never met in my life, but also, again, just for the Korean people and to never forget those who still live in North Korea.
Well, maybe you'll get a special visa right to meet up with them and deliver some books.
You never know.
North Korea, you definitely deserve to take a trip there. So congratulations and good luck.
Thank
and I look forward to helping you on some bigger projects like the movie.
Likewise. I appreciate it.
Have a good weekend. Take care.
Awesome. You too.
Tune in next time on The Valley Current.